Hello, welcome to the channel and thanks for watching. And this is a bit of a different video today because I'm going to talk you through all of this stack of models that are here on my painting table. This is a pile of shame review after 3 years on YouTube. Thank you all so much for helping me get to 3 years on YouTube and the 5,500 subscribers ish we've got at the moment. Yes, we're going to do a bit of a weird video, just talking through what's going to be coming up on the channel. Not going to feature everything I've got unpainted. As you can see, an unpainted corridor gang there, some unpainted marines and some unpainted bolt action tanks, but it should be a bit of fun. So 3 years now on YouTube and Instagram, and I thought it'd be a bit of fun to talk through my current pile of shame and kind of work in progress. Now this isn't everything I've got, just in case at some point I reveal a model that I've had for ages and you guys go, you never showed it. But this is kind of stuff I thought would be a bit interesting to talk about, and really what I'm going to try and get done over the coming year and get all of this done and shown on the channel. So not an exhaustive pile of shame, but I think this is big enough to talk through in the confines of doing a YouTube video without going to the ends of the earth. And I'll start off with a box in front of me. You've seen a fly past of the models at the start of this, and I'll just dig through any random order and talk about what's kind of semi-appropriate. Now this is a box of sprues that have been opened and partly done, but I thought, you know, join them in as well. Plague bearers. Some of these have been used for converting my Sisters of Nurgle on a previous video. I've got this sprue here and a couple more in the garage, and I am going to be doing quite a lot of Death Guard focus over this coming year, and I really hope the Death Guard Codex comes out fairly soon, because although I quite like the 10th edition rules, it'd be nice to have a new codex, new models, and I'm going to get all these things done in sort of preparation for that. A Miasmic Milligan-Fire, if you've been watching the channel recently, you'll know I've used one of these sets on the base of my Reaver Titan, which you'll see in a minute, and this is another one. All that's been changed off this is a couple of the chimneys that I believe stack in here for a conversion of a conversion of a Space Marine vehicle I did a while ago for the Death Guard. So again, virtually a complete model. I thought I'd show it, and I do have future plans for this, so keep an eye on the channel. Now this one's a bit boring really. Tons and tons of this has been all over YouTube. So this is the remains of the Leviathan box set that hasn't yet been featured. So Ballista's Dreadnought, the Flamethrower Primaris, the Stern Guard Veterans, if that's what they're called, and the Lieutenant. So a few little bits on there, and I am going to do these for my custom Space Marine chapter. So again, look out for that, and I'll get around to these at some point. And I think that's another thing about we all know when we all have a pile of shame and we all have lots of models knocking around. It's cool models that we bought, and quite often we'll do something with, we'll paint half the box or whatever, and then they get left for a while. So I'm going to try and commit to not doing that quite so much this year. But again, I don't actually feel that this is a bad pile of shame I'm going to show you through, and I'm sure there's lots of you out there with far worse. So yeah, drop a comment down below if your pile of shame is significantly larger than this, and I imagine there will be a lot of you with a lot more than this knocking around. Okay, so that's kind of what's in front of me now. So let's get rid of some of the boxes of sprues first, because they're get them off the table then. So I'll show you some Necromunda pieces. So I've featured Necromunda on the channel quite a lot, and it is one of my favourite game systems, probably my favourite game system of all time, outside of 40k in terms of how many times I've played it. I do think there are better game systems out there, but in terms of how often and longevity, Necromunda definitely a favourite. I've done a load on the channel. I do still have, if you go back to that fly past, I've still got a corridor gang to paint. But again, we were playing a lot of Necromunda at the time, and that is the last Necromunda gang I have to paint on the channel, and that's me done in terms of core gangs. And then we've kind of stalled a bit on Necromunda. But this is something I picked up for the scenery set I was doing, so I've done lots of Necromunda scenery tiles, and this is a 3D printed kind of like loading crane type thing with tracks that I picked up from a company called Wufu Workshop on Etsy. I think it's on Instagram as well and stuff. And this was going to be for one of my scenery tiles for Necromunda. Again, kind of stalled on that project, but we'll talk about that in a second. So some Necromunda barricades, again really nice pieces. I have painted these on the channel before with a lot of scenery, so you can take a look at that. The Necromunda Underhive Marketplace, that's actually 2 sets that I've taken some bits out of, but essentially that's a full set left in there, a minimum of a full set. So yeah, more about that to come on the project, and it links to what's under here, which is my scratch built and cast Necromunda kind of Zone Mortalis tiles. And these are some pieces of those tiles that I'm going to do some bits where it looks like the underhive's been cracking through and things. And there are some full tiles in here as well that I've again shown quite a lot of these tiles on the channel. You've just seen one in that fly past into my cabinet. So again, going to do something more interesting and get back into that Necromunda terrain at some point, hopefully over the next year, because the guys I play Necromunda with that we haven't played for a while, Necromunda played other things, are talking about getting the campaign up and going again, which has been probably 2 years. So yeah, look out for that. Right, now before I start moving, filled boxes, I'm sure you're thinking we've got some bolt actions, some Star Wars and some of the weird bits here. I'm just going to pick up some completed pieces. Now, these are some of the best Games Workshop model kits, the Munitorum armoured containers. I've done a few of these again for the Necromunda terrain, so that's what we're talking about now. And I've still got a few left that were going to go on the Necromunda board, so you might see these featuring and being painted onto a Necromunda board, or it might go to some other scenery. So yeah, great little piece of terrain. And look, I built them and I just sprayed them black and sprayed them silver. And again, I've used these in a couple of games just to scatter terrain without them being painted, which is a bit of a sin, but yeah, great little pieces. Onto that, I also picked up this piece, which when the Imperium magazine came out, number 27, $8.99 for the Hemotrope reactor, couldn't resist that. And again, I'm kind of torn between doing something scenery based for, again, the Necromunda board, something like that, or a really strange kind of chaos nurgly conversion. So I've not quite decided what we're going to do with that, but again, picked that up probably 18 months ago and I was still in the Necromunda kick and didn't sort of get to it, but again, should feature on the channel. And I'll just grab a box from down here on the table because it relates. The models that are on top of it. The thermic plasma reactors. I've done one of these onto a Necromunda scenery piece, maybe two. And this is a full box of two more, so I've got either 2 or 3 of these knocking round. Again, just great little scenery pieces. So yeah, see where that leads us. Now, on the topic of scenery, one sealed and one open. TT Combat Tabletop Scenics, the Gothic Corner Ruins. Now, the reason I want to talk about these now is I did, prior to having a YouTube channel, I did myself a 6x4 like destroyed city scenery. Now that was done because we were doing a campaign between a bunch of us, and then lockdown happened, etc. Played in it a couple of times, used it a few times since, but not really for the campaign aim because the sort of lockdown and COVID stalled the campaign. I have now destroyed that board. Literally, these were all glued down and modular and everything. And yeah, I've completely destroyed it. So I'm going to do something different. And these are two that I never got around to using. And yeah, I am going to do some sort of video of why I've now destroyed my modular city fight board and why I'm going to do something different. So that's kind of potentially another future up and coming. That's most of the scenery pieces and Necromunda kind of dealt with. While we're on the topic of scenery though, one of the best box sets Games Workshop have ever produced, Citadel Skulls. And I'm including this in here because although I do have a box that I've used over the course of 3, 4, 5 years, this one I picked up off eBay, I think it was, maybe a year ago. I don't even know if this is still available. If it is, get one, they're amazing. If it's not still available, try and track one down off eBay or whatever, because this is genuinely one of the best box sets for scatter terrain, for scenery, for doing conversions, especially for chaos, for just making really interesting, cool bases. So yeah, one of the best box sets Games Workshop have ever released, if not the best box, because everyone can use this. So yeah, superb. And I will check out if you can still get it actually, because my other one, that isn't a complete one, has nearly run out of skulls, and it's always good to have more skulls. Now let's talk about Star Wars. Now I do have some other Star Wars models to do. I can't remember where they are, to be perfectly honest. Now this is the crashed escape pod with C3PO and R2D2 in it. And when this first came out, I actually couldn't get hold of it. I didn't do it on pre-order. Local gaming shop kept selling out. I came back in stock and I bought it, even though I wasn't on a Star Wars kick at the moment. I just never got around to doing it again. I must get around to it. So when we get to May, when it is Star Wars month, it will be this and probably the ATST, which I've featured on the channel. Painted the Ewoks, they're all done. They've all been featured, and just really never got around to the ATST. But this will be painted up, and it'll probably be done in Star Wars month in May, because that always seems very themic and very topical. Have used this in game a couple of times, and it is hilarious fun having the the glorious stormtroopers shooting Ewoks, because this has not been used on the Ewok side. It has been used on the stormtroopers to kill the little fluffy bears. So yeah, fantastic. So that's Star Wars kind of dealt with. Now I'm going to move into something that talk about really pre my channel. So this is the first thing here that really I've had since before the channel started. The models at least. Now, when the channel sort of started, when I was doing these the Necron piece at the very beginning, I was just moving house. We just were buying a new build house, that's bigger, a bit more of a nerd room for me, garage for the gaming table, that kind of thing. And I made the pledge to myself at the time I was going to get every model I owned done. Or at least, if not done, built and undercoated, which is why I don't have a lot of old models that are still in box, although I'm going to show you one later. And these are the two bolt action armies that at the time I went out of my way to build and get into a figure case. So I do love the KR multi-case figure cases. I think they're fantastic, and just an easier way of storing and moving your armies. So I have a sprayed army green, and these are American paratroopers. Yeah, just from in the bot action set. Not a huge army, just a small force of paratroopers. I've done a lot of bolt action armies in my time, some very large ones, some really cool ones full of Bren carriers and those kind of things, but this is just a small American force that I need to get round to doing, and a small German force in here, again all built and sprayed grey, ready for starting off to whatever I'm doing. Probably going to do them Wehrmacht rather than SS, less effort with the colour schemes potentially. So yeah, then there's the Germans there, and a little layer of Germans at the bottom, and my favourite in real life tank, pretty much because it was one of the first tanks I ever did when I was a kid, about 8 years old. My dad bought me an elephant model, and this is a resin and metal elephant, yeah. So not really a tank actually, tank destroyer, but same thing. So metal and resin, and for those of you who are bolt action fans, that is the Whitman model from one of the Tigers. So yeah, sat on there. Very nice, bit of camo netting, bit of yellowing going on there from the milliput, how I've sealed it together. And again, this model's probably been built like this for, 6-7 years, and if you watch the fly past fast enough when I showed you the collection and my cabinets, you'll know in there I've also got a Yag Tiger that also needs doing, a couple of bits as well knocking around. So yeah, that's the bolt action. And again, I built this sort of at the beginning of the channel, wasn't really featured, wasn't really shown, but again built it because I wanted stuff out of boxes when we moved house, so we could just chuck figure cases in a box and make life easier. Just kind of never got around to doing anything with it. Nothing wrong with that at all. Obviously you can have an army, you can play with it unpainted. I prefer not to, but I will get around to doing these at some point if any of you guys are interested in watching bolt action. If you're not, I do realise it's a more of a niche game when compared to 40k and stuff, but it is a fantastic gaming system, and these are some fantastic models for it. So on the channel, when I was doing a review on some dry brushes, I showed the Kelly's Heroes Sherman tank, and this is the Oddball Heroes, or the Kelly's Heroes characters. An amazing film, amazing set of models. And again, I've been sat on these for a couple of years, I think it is. I really need to get around to doing them because they are lovely models and great film. Right, kind of now on to the 40k pieces, but first I'm going to talk about some unusual models. So if you've watched the channel recently, you'll know I did, they're called Star Rogues, which is like a very retro 40k miniatures, and I mentioned on that I had some of their Beaky Marines, and these are these. So these are new models, these are not like old Games Workshop models, these are brand new sculpted by Bequest Miniatures and Spevner Studio, I think there's something to with them, and these are superb, very, very old school looking metal Beaky Marines. Got a few of them, so they'll be featured on the channel soon. The last unusual thing before I go on to what I suppose is my Nurgle collection, these guys. So the Tank Museum down in Bovington, so real world tanks. Went down there a couple of years ago and did do a video on the channel of my kind of favourite tanks, a bit of a conversation around that. While I was down there, I bought these kind of Toon tanks. Now these things are crazy, look, they're not anyway photorealistic of a vehicle, you can see. Crazy expanded turrets, and throw them everywhere. Sherman tank with a turret as big as the hull. And the idea was I was going to convert these into some Grot tanks with some Gretchen that I've had, and this box is absolutely battered. This box must be 10 years old by now at least. 2008 on there, I think that's the guy, probably more than that. Yeah, so the idea was I'm going to do some Grot tanks, and every October I thought, ooh, October, let's do the Grot tanks. And that's been 3 years in a row I've kind of thought that. And I think I've even shown these on the channel before actually when I did a what I've bought this week. So I promise, do these next October for October, or I'll do them when the Orc Codex comes out. But I've actually been quite excited to do these, I've just never got around to it. And if you've watched the channel about how I cast up and sculpt models, when I did my Octarius terrain a couple of years ago for Kilting, I cast all the Orc symbols off that into glue stuff ready for this. So actually I'll grab that and show you now. So I love casting pieces up with blue stuff, which is this, which is like a thermoplastic that you melt, push over a model, it makes a cool little mould. So this was a mould off some of the Octarius terrain where they put Orc faces on. Now I de-orcified my Octarius terrain and chopped all the Orc symbols off, but then cast them up specifically for doing this project. And when you put green stuff into these moulds, you get really cool little orky faces like that, if that'll focus, and little kind of slash symbols. And there are some more moulds, And the idea was I was then going to use these to decorate up these tanks along with the Gretchen and make them cool Orky vehicles. So I'd like to think that is a great example of forward planning. I cast these moulds up a couple of years ago. I did a few test casts, and I'll do more when the actual project comes up. So although it's been around for a long time and I've got other stuff cast up and ready for it, we'll get around to doing it, and I'm looking forward to that. And that just shows you, look, if you plan properly and you think about it, you'll make future projects better, and there's nothing wrong with gathering up this stuff and saving it for later years. Right, getting close to the end. So now we're on to the sealed up, or at least not touched boxes. So let's go to the oldest purchase first. Now, I think it's actually this guy, the Stormhawk Interceptor. I have done some flies on the channel before. I did a converted Storm Eagle, and I was going to just use this for my custom Marines, but actually I've kind of got in my head, I'm going to go buy another Stormhawk. Not Stormhawk, the Storm Eagle, the big fly one, the transporter that I've seen, and kit bash the two of them together to make some sort of weird, freaky Nurgle transporter vehicle. So that's the plans for that one. You'll have seen on the channel before, I've done lots of knights. I did my Nurgle Knight army, a couple of armigers knocking around, and I'm going to do, again, some sort of extra knight or armigers to go on the channel, just to really have as a bit of a reinforcement for my Titan army. Primaris Infiltrators, knocking around. No, I don't want to do them because I've finished. I only needed the one for the crew member who got out of the Dreadnought. Not the Dreadnought, the Invicta Tactical Warsuit, and I used a couple to convert up some Eliminators, but I bought 2 boxes. I thought I was going to do something with them, so I need to have a plan for these. Coming on to something I bought a few months ago now, when I was going to expand my Combat Patrol. This again, I did a couple of test paints of Poxwalkers, so I've got a squad of 10 Poxwalkers somewhere else, and I was going to expand that force and use Typhus from the Death Guard Combat Patrol, but I've touched nothing in here, so I've got another squad of 7 Death Guard, Typhus, the Biologist Putrefier, wherever he is, somewhere down here, and a load of the Poxwalkers. So a full Death Guard Combat Patrol to get myself into and build up my Death Guard. I am currently prepping for an 8,000 point game in Warhammer World in January, so we've got a bunch of mates of mine, well, only a few of us, 2 or 3 of us, down in Warhammer World for the weekend on the 12th, 13th, 14th of January, I think it is. So yeah, check us out in Warhammer World if you want to see my ugly face playing some games. 2 rhinos, so these are going for 40k, not 30k, and I'm going to get these again to transport normal Death Guard infantry troops. And really, I went for the Demos pattern because I just can't help but think the old patterns of rhino are just so much cooler looking, especially for doing with Death Guard that obviously would have had these in the initial sort of founding of their legion. So yeah, 2 of those are being done. And again, I know you can't use this, the Spartan, you can't use this for 40k because it's a Legends vehicle, but it's just such a cool vehicle, and I really enjoyed doing it for 30k, that I thought, right, I want a 40k one to transport my Terminators around in for, again, for my Death Guard. So I'm going to try and get this done before January, but I'm taking so long doing my Reaver Titan that this might not actually feature in the January games, but I definitely need the Rhinos done in time for that game in January, so watch this space. And I suppose the latest thing I've bought recently for a project is this. So a Cerastus Knight, Castigator, and a Great Unclean one. And the reason I've got both of these and showing at the same time is the idea is these are going to be mashed together, and I'm going to make some sort of weird Great Unclean One Knight kind of thing, and simple conversions in some senses because you get the really cool Great Unclean One sword, and I have checked and opened the boxes, and the Great Unclean One sword is actually slightly bigger than the Castigator sword. And then I'm going to build Rotigus and use all the parts that don't go into Rotigus, whether it's the open wound and kind of there will be moulded into the torso and the belly, and I'll do some green stuff in to make it all weird and demonic, and maybe replace the head and do some other stuff on there. So yeah, these are going to get smashed together. So I will have a Rotigus, but then I will have a really, really demonic, freaky Cerastus Knight Castigator. So again, looking forward to adding that in as a bit of a bodyguard to what I'm going to slide across next. And this is my current big work in progress, which is taking a long time. So my Reaver Titan, I'm going to take the camera off the mount. Let's go some free flow to have a look at him. So yeah, it is work in progress. I've shown the base, I've done some of the brass detailing. This is being filmed on the Saturday before this channel come out, so you can see I've not really progressed too far with it. Yeah, work's crazy at the moment. It's a lot of work going on, and again, I've not really done a great deal of work with this. I do need to pull my finger out and get it done because it is a fantastic model. I am really enjoying it, and I'm certainly looking forward to using it on the gaming table in January. So I'll get this mounted back up and I'll show the last 2 things, and then I think this walkthrough's done. So we'll slide the Reaver Titan out of the way, and I'll bring in the last couple of models. And these are the pretty much, I think, must be the oldest models in my collection. Apart from, I do have a couple of RTBO ones knocking around somewhere. The very, very first plastic Space Marine. I can't find where they are. I know I've got them because I'm going to make a point of painting them alongside the metal Beaky Marines that I've just shown you earlier from Bequest. I'm going to do them. I'm going to show this one. This is a very strange model. This is not 40k. It's not Warhammer. It's not Bolt Action. This is a D&D figure. I think this is a Reaper Miniatures one. That was a campaign that was going on in a local games club that I was part of when I was a store manager for Games Workshop in York. And this was a female sorceress I bought the model for. Never ever painted it. And it must be what, 1999 or 2001, 2002 maybe, I can't remember. Bottom of the base says 1992 Games Workshop, but it was obviously an old Slaughter base that I dropped that model on. So yeah, that one, I keep saying one day I'm going to paint it. You know, it's been what, 23, 24 years already. One day I'll paint it. And the last one to show you, and this is a really, this is very, very old school. We have some Warhammer 40,000 Imperial Guard on jet bike. Lead miniature from 1987 I am going for, 87, 88, and this is the oldest set in my possession, and I think at some point I will paint it, maybe as a 10,000 subscriber celebration model or something like that, to mark some epic milestone if I ever get there. So yeah, 3 years on YouTube. Thank you all so much for following along and doing all the commenting and sharing and all that malarkey that goes on. Yeah, never thought I would last this long, 3 years. Never thought so many of you would be interested in following my journey. And yeah, maybe 10,000 people. It feels like that's achievable now. Never thought that 5,000 was achievable. Never thought 3 years was achievable. So yeah, I hope you've enjoyed that waffle through my current pile of shame and work in progress, and I hope I've excited you for some of what maybe I'm planning to do over the next sort of 12 months. If you have, like, comment, subscribe, all that YouTube jazz, and I will see you on another video.